I've always found that the hospital breathes at night, not in the obvious way, the hum of machines or the beeps of monitors, but in a quieter, more solemn rhythm, the kind of breathing you notice only when everything else stops. At 3 a.m., the hallways exhale just before the air conditioning kicks in. The shadows seem to shift like lungs under a sheet, and behind the drawn curtains, silence has a weight you can feel on your shoulders. My name is Dr. Elias Corin. I'm 39, a night doctor in the palliative care wing of St. Alden's. I've been working nights for 7 years, and I like to think I've made peace with the things most people try not to think about. I don't fear death. It's the waiting that unnerves me, the in-between, the hollow hours between midnight and dawn, when patients sleep and the halls go still, when even grief seems suspended in time. I started hearing the sound during the last week of October. At first, it was subtle, a faint shuffle, like someone dragging their feet across linoleum, just beyond the corner of my vision. Room 213 was the source, or at least, that's where the sound seemed to pull from. A soft slide, stop, slide again. I checked the room more than once that week. It was empty. Not even a bed inside, just plastic sheeting where maintenance had peeled back the old wallpaper and exposed a stained corner of the drywall. Still, the sound returned, always after 2:45 a.m., never any earlier, never any later. Slide, stop, slide, a hush, then something like the sigh of fabric being drawn aside. Each time I looked, the curtain dividing the two halves of the room would be slightly different, more curved, as if someone had been standing behind it and just slipped away. I didn't tell the nurses. You learn quickly not to speak certain things aloud, especially at night. 'Tis a shared understanding among those of us who work the graveyard shifts. Some things just want to be noticed, and once you acknowledge them, they acknowledge you back. The night I finally saw something, I had just finished pronouncing a death in room 219. An older man, terminal cancer, who'd spent his last days delirious but peaceful. The air in the hallway felt cold as I stepped out, colder than it should have been. The lights above room 213 flickered, not dramatically, just once, a blink, a hiccup of electricity. I walked in again, just to put my mind at ease. The plastic sheeting rustled behind me as I stepped over it. The room smelled of mildew and age, like wet paper, and then I heard it. Behind the drawn curtain, at the far end of the room, the unmistakable sound of a breath being held and then let go. I froze. The kind of stillness where even your heartbeat feels too loud. I whispered something. I think it was hello, or maybe just the ghost of the word. The curtain didn't move, but I saw the edge of it tighten slightly, as if pulled by a hand unseen. My steps were slow. I told myself it was a homeless patient, maybe someone disoriented, who wandered in. That happens sometimes. But when I reached for the curtain and pulled it back, there was nothing, no one, just the dent in the floor where the bed used to sit and the shadow that clung to the far corner like it had nowhere else to go. I backed out, carefully, closed the door, didn't speak of it, but the sound started following me. Not literally, I don't think, but it found me again. 2 nights later, in room 221, I was checking in on a young woman in the late stages of renal failure. Her eyes had been closed for hours. Then as I turned to adjust her chart, I heard it behind me. That sound again. Slide, stop, slide, but the floor behind me was empty. I turned slowly. No curtain this time, just open air. And yet, I could feel it, the presence, like someone was inches from me, but careful to stay out of sight. The next day I called in sick, stayed home, sat on my couch in silence, trying to tell myself I was overtired. My wife didn't ask questions, she's used to my silences, but that night, around 2:45 a.m., I woke up in the dark to the sound of fabric rustling. There were no curtains in our bedroom. I returned to work the following night. Some part of me knew I had to go back, like I'd left something open, something that needed closing. I asked the floor manager if room 213 was still scheduled for repairs. She looked confused, said the order had been closed a week ago. The room was cleared, ready for occupancy again. But when I went to check it, the plastic was still there, so were the stains on the wall. That night, a nurse called me in a panic. A patient had vanished from room 210. An elderly woman with severe dementia. She couldn't walk unassisted. The bed alarm hadn't gone off. No one had seen her leave, but I knew where she was. We found her huddled in the corner of room 213, eyes wide, lips trembling. She was whispering something to the empty curtain. "I didn't mean to take it," she said, over and over. "I didn't mean to take it." There was no one else in the room, but the curtain was drawn again. Later that morning, when things had calmed down and the sun had begun to bleed into the sky, I sat alone in the staff break room. I didn't drink my coffee. I just sat, staring at the door, waiting for something to move behind it. I don't think it's tied to room 213 anymore. That was just where it started. Whatever it is, whatever breathes behind the curtain, it follows patterns of silence, not space. It waits for people like me. People who stay too long in the quiet. I've noticed something about my hands lately. They tremble when I reach for certain doors. My voice falters when I speak to patients with curtains drawn beside them. It's like part of me already knows it's watching. I still work the night shift, not out of duty, not anymore, but because I need to know if it's done with me, or if I've become a part of its rhythm. Another step in the slide, stop, slide. Sometimes I wake in the break room, not remembering when I fell asleep, and I see the curtain in the far corner swaying. Even when the vents are off, it always stops when I look at it. But I know it waits for silence, and I've given it so much already. There's something about the second floor of the night clinic that never feels fully awake, even when the rest of the hospital hums quietly with life. The walls seem to absorb sound instead of echoing it. The lights are just a shade too dim, the kind of dim that turns white coats into gray shadows. There's always a chill, even when the thermostat reads 72. It's the floor where time pauses, or maybe forgets to pass altogether. My name is Dr. Ria Lin. I'm 34 years old, a night physician in the after-hours clinic at St. Alden's Sermon, second floor. My shift runs from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I've always been good at silence. Too good, maybe. It's why I was transferred here. The administration said it was better for my temperament. I didn't argue. After what happened in ER rotation last winter, I stopped arguing about most things. I still don't talk about that night. I just remember the quiet when the monitors went flat, and the way the room seemed to hold its breath, as if even the walls knew someone was gone. The clinic isn't like the ER. It's supposed to be calmer. Most nights we treat nothing worse than fevers, broken wrists, or people who are scared enough to come in, but not sick enough to stay. The second floor used to be a pediatric ward. You can still see faded stickers of stars and moons along the baseboards if you look close enough, but we're not supposed to notice those things, just like we're not supposed to ask why room 206 is always left unlocked even though no one uses it, or why the light in its bathroom flickers at exactly 3:17 every morning. I used to think the weirdness came from the patients. Late night pain can make people say strange things, but lately, it's not them, it's the rooms themselves. They listen too well. One night, about 3 weeks ago, I heard a child giggling in the hallway outside the exam rooms, just for a second, soft and high-pitched, like a laugh being swallowed. I stepped out immediately. The hallway was empty. Only 2 patients in that night, both adults, one with shingles, the other was already asleep, waiting on labs. The nurses didn't hear it. but they don't hear a lot on this floor, not anymore. Then came the call button from room 204. I hadn't placed anyone there. We hadn't used it all week. I walked in, expecting maybe a patient had wandered, but the room was dark, empty, the bed untouched. The button light blinked once more, then stopped. I didn't report it. I've learned not to report things that only I hear, especially not since the psych evils last December. But the sense of being watched grew after that night. I'd feel it when walking between rooms. That tight, quiet feeling, like walking through a memory that doesn't belong to you. My reflection in the glass doors started to feel delayed, like it had to catch up to me. And sometimes, when I turned off the hallway lights at shift's end, they'd flicker back on, just briefly, like something wanted to be sure it could still see me. 2 nights later, I was alone in exam room C. I'd just finished a follow-up with a man complaining of sleep paralysis. He said he'd been waking up to something sitting on his chest. I gave him a referral for a sleep study and wrote it off as stress. But then I sat down to chart and realized my stethoscope wasn't on the hook. I always put it there. I looked around, the drawer, the sink, even under the patient chair, and then I saw it, just behind the curtain divider. The edge of the tubing was visible, as if someone had gently placed it on the floor and stepped back into the shadow. I pulled the curtain fast. No one, just the stethoscope curled like a question mark on the tile. I picked it up, trying not to let my hands tremble. When I turned around, the room door was slightly open. I hadn't left it that way. The following week, the whispers started, always in the same room, room 206. I would pass by on my way to the supply closet and hear voices inside, not words, just murmurs, like 2 people whispering through water. But the room remained empty, untouched, except once I found a child's drawing on the floor, crayon, a crooked blue house, a black sun, and in the bottom corner, a figure with no face. The nurses said maybe it was left behind years ago, but there was no dust on the paper. The crayon wax still smelled fresh. I started locking the clinic rooms after midnight, even when I knew no one was in them. Something about the stillness felt increasingly wrong. Not haunted exactly, just off, like the air itself didn't belong here anymore. That feeling reached its peak 4 nights ago. It was 3 a.m., quiet as usual. The hallway lights had dimmed automatically. I was reviewing a file when the intercom clicked on. Just a faint crackle, then silence, then a soft voice, a child's, saying he doesn't know he's dead yet. I froze. It wasn't a recording. The voice was too natural, too present. I rushed to the nurse's station, asking if they'd heard anything. They looked at me like I was losing it. It didn't make a sound, one of them said. Nothing's come through since 10. I checked the security cameras. Room 206's feed was frozen. Just a still image of the doorway. Every other camera worked fine. The tech said it had been like that since just before 3. At 3:17, the light in 206's bathroom flickered, exactly as it always did. One long pulse, like an exhale. I unlocked the room for the first time in months, and stepped inside. It was cold, the kind of cold that bites through clothing. The bed had been made, oddly perfect, tightly tucked sheets, a pillow without a crease, and above the bed, taped neatly to the wall, was another drawing. A new one. This one showed a hallway, long windowless, with a figure at the far end. Again no face, just the faint outline of a doctor's coat, my coat. I left the room slowly, shut the door, locked it, didn't speak. The next day, I filed for temporary leave. They denied it, so I'm still here, still walking those dim halls on the 2nd floor, pretending I don't see what I see, pretending I don't hear what I hear. Sometimes the curtain behind me sways when I haven't moved. Sometimes I hear chart paper rustling in an empty room. And last night, the intercom crackled again, only once. It said, "You're part of it now." I didn't answer, because I think it was right. The doctor's lounge is quieter than the rest of the hospital. It always has been. No machines, no overhead pages, No fluorescent buzzing from IV pumps or monitors, just soft chairs, an old coffee machine that makes a sigh before it hisses, and a vending machine that still stocks crackers from 2 years ago. It smells like warmed paper and worn-out shoes, the kind of smell that clings to your coat even after you leave. My name is Julian Yu. I'm a 38-year-old internal medicine doctor. I've worked night shifts at St. Alden's for 9 years, long enough that I no longer blink at codes called at 3 a.m. or security escorting confused patients back into their beds, but I still notice the doctor's lounge, maybe because it's the only place we're allowed to be tired. Not weak, just tired. It's tucked behind a fire door on the 3rd floor, near the stairwell no one uses anymore. You have to badge in twice, once to enter the hallway, and again to open the lounge door. The lock gives this high-pitched chirp, like it's questioning your choice to enter. Most nights, I stop in around 2, when everything is still, and the weight of the shift lands between my shoulder blades. I don't remember when I started noticing the chair, the one in the corner next to the magazine rack. It's an old recliner, faded gray-green, with stuffing poking out at one arm. It's always been there. I've seen dozens of residents fall asleep in it, heads tilted at odd angles, arms dangling toward the floor, like marionettes with cut strings. But about 2 months ago, I noticed it was always facing the window. Someone kept turning it. Every shift, I'd set it back straight when I left, but when I returned the next night, it was angled again, just enough to face the fogged glass. No one else mentioned it. Most didn't notice. And then came the cup, a paper cup, hospital standard, with the blue chevron design. I found it on the side table next to the recliner, half full of black coffee, still warm, but I'd just entered the lounge. I was alone. No one had been in before me. Security logs confirmed that. The 3rd time I found it, the cup had a single lipstick mark on the rim, a dark red smudge. I checked with every female resident on shift that night. None of them wore lipstick. One joked, "Who still wears lipstick in a place like this?" No one took the cup. It sat there for hours before I threw it out myself. That's when I began staying in the lounge longer. Not sleeping, just watching. I'd sit in the other chair, across from the recliner, and wait. Some nights, I'd hear the door creak gently, even though it was shut. Other times, the coffee machine would start brewing on its own. Always at 2:47 a.m. A single hiss, then silence, then the dream started. Not nightmares exactly, just visions, if that's what you call them. I'd be lying in the recliner, unable to move. The lounge would be pitch black, except for a soft blue light spilling in from the hallway. And standing in the doorway, always just beyond the threshold, was a woman, not moving, just watching. She wore a lab coat, no ID badge. Her hands were empty, but her face, it flickered, like her expression couldn't quite settle. Sometimes calm, sometimes pleading, sometimes angry. I'd wake up cold, always cold, and the coffee machine would be hissing again. One night, I finally asked maintenance if they knew the lounge's history. One of the older guys, Charlie, gave me a look I won't forget. He said, "You're not the first one to ask about that chair. Just don't sit in it, whatever you do." That night, I did. It was impulsive. Some dumb part of me needed to prove it was just stress. I sat in the recliner, leaned back slowly, and waited. My eyes adjusted to the dark. The hum of the vending machine filled the silence, and then I heard the door unlatch. It didn't open fully, just enough to let the hallway light leak in. She was there again, closer this time, 1 foot in the room, still watching. I blinked. She didn't move, didn't fade, just remained there. Just remained there, like she'd been waiting for me to return to the chair. I couldn't breathe for a moment. Then I stood up too fast, my head spinning. When I turned back to the door, it was closed again. No sound, no footsteps. The chair was cold where I'd been sitting. but the paper cup had returned. Same lipstick stain. I didn't sleep the rest of the shift. I sat outside in the hallway, watching the lounge door. I told no one. A week later, I found an old staff photo buried in the archives office, dated 1997. A black and white image of the night shift team, in front of the old third-floor ward. There, second from the right, stood the woman. Same lab coat, same flickering expression, caught mid-smile. Her name was Dr. Alara Monroe. She died in that lounge 27 years ago. Cardiac arrest. Post-shift, found in the recliner. Coffee still warm beside her. They never changed the furniture. No one thought to. Now I notice that the lounge is colder than the rest of the floor. Just a few degrees, enough to raise goosebumps if you're still enough. The vending machine has a new crack across the glass, like someone pressed their forehead against it. And every few nights, someone mentions seeing a woman in white pass the hallway window near the stairwell. I don't use the lounge anymore, but sometimes, at 2:47 a.m., pass by and hear the coffee machine sighing. And if I look through the small window on the lounge door, I see the chair turn toward the window again, with the cup still warm, still waiting. There's something about the sound of an elevator at 3 a.m. that doesn't feel mechanical. It feels alive, a soft clunk, a low hum, followed by the sigh of metal doors easing open, like something exhaling in the dark. Most nights it's background noise, but every now and then it feels like the building is waking up, stretching, listening. My name is Dr. Nina Verma. I'm a 41-year-old trauma surgeon, and I've worked night shifts at St. Alden's for 11 years. Most nights blur together, a parade of broken ribs, gunshot wounds, and car wrecks. But some things don't blend in. Some moments come back, uninvited, again and again. Elevator 6 is one of them. It's the elevator at the far end of the West Wing. Most staff avoid it, not because it's broken. On paper, it works fine, but because it's slow, twitchy, it stutters between floors, and sometimes skips floors altogether. Engineering's looked at it more than once. They say the diagnostics come back clean. Still, I used to take it. It's not because I trusted it, but because my office was on the 6th floor, and when I needed to clear my head between cases, I'd ride it alone. That little metal box became a kind of confessional. Nothing but steel, faint music, and my own reflection in the flickering ceiling panel. Started noticing it last October. The elevator would stop on the 3rd floor. Even if I hadn't pressed the button, the doors would open, stay wide for a beat too long, and then close again. No one there, just darkness. Always darkness, like the hallway beyond the 3rd floor. Never got the memo that the lights were fixed. One night, I let it happen 3 times in a row. Pressed 6, it went up, stopped on 3, doors opened, emptiness. But the 4th time, something changed. There was a sound, a whisper, faint, like it was being pulled through water. I couldn't make out the words, just syllables brushing against each other. I stood at the threshold staring into the hallway. The lights in the elevator flickered once, then held steady. The hallway outside was darker than I'd ever seen it, pitch black, with no emergency light, no signs, nothing. And then I saw the edge of a sleeve, just the edge, pale gray fabric, disappearing around the corner to the left. A person, maybe, but I saw no body, just fabric, like a coat turning without a torso. I didn't step out. The doors closed. The elevator climbed to 6. I didn't look at myself in the mirrored panel that night. Later, I checked the cameras. Nothing. The security feed for elevator 6 had frozen at 2:41 a.m., right as it reached the 3rd floor. It stayed frozen for 47 seconds, then resumed. To next night, I tried again. This time, I pressed 3 on purpose. The elevator obeyed, humming down smoothly, as if grateful I'd finally asked. When the doors opened, I saw light this time, a dim fluorescent bulb, swaying slightly, like there was a draft. The hallway was empty, but something felt off, the kind of wrong you can't name, only feel. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and iron, old blood and floor polish. I stepped out. The floor beneath me was sticky, just barely, like something had dried and then been hastily mopped. There were no sounds, not even the usual buzz of electric panels or the squeak of wheels from distant gurneys, just silence. Halfway down the hallway, I saw a door slightly ajar, a supply closet. I recognized it. Years ago, this wing was used for overflow psych patients during renovations. Then it was shut down. No one ever bothered to reopen it. I walked slowly toward the closet. Each footstep echoed like it didn't belong to me. The air got colder. Inside the closet, the light didn't work, but there was a shape in the corner. Someone sitting, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around them. I whispered, "Are you okay?" No response. I moved closer. The figure didn't move. No shift of weight, no startled glance. Then I heard a breath, not theirs, mine, but not from my mouth. It was behind me. I turned around fast, heart in my throat. Nothing, just the open hallway, stretching back to the elevator. When I turned back to the corner, the figure was gone, nothing but a smear on the floor, like something had dragged itself away. I ran. I'm not ashamed to say it. I ran back to the elevator and slammed the button so hard it cracked. When the doors finally closed, the lights flickered again, and this time, I heard it, a voice, soft, almost kind. "Dr. Verma, still working nights?" I froze. It was a woman's voice, familiar in that way, that makes your stomach turn. I turned around inside the elevator. No one, just me, but the mirror above showed something else. There was a shadow behind me, not touching me, not moving, just a form. And then the elevator went dark. When it came back on, I was alone again. I got off on the 6th floor and vomited in the stairwell. The next day, I checked the employee ear archives. I had to know. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Just that voice, that calm, haunting voice. Her name was Dr. Lee Halpern, psychiatrist. She ran the 3rd floor ward during the early 2000s. She worked the night shifts for 12 years straight, was known for never missing a shift. She died in elevator 6, massive stroke, alone, between floors. They say she pressed the emergency button, but it didn't send the signal in time. When they found her, she was slumped in the corner, coat draped over her lap, like she knew she wasn't going to make it. I think about her now, often. I don't ride elevator 6 anymore. None of us do. Engineering keeps saying the glitches aren't replicable, but no one wants to be the one to test it. Sometimes, as I walk past that end of the hallway, I hear the elevator hum to life. Doors open, stay open, waiting, and once, just once, I swear I saw the reflection of a woman in the closed doors, looking right at me. You can tell the hour by the silence, not by clocks, but by the way the walls breathe differently after 4 a.m. The hospital becomes something else then, less a building, more a body, holding its breath. No pages, no buzzers, no footsteps, just the hum of machines, and the occasional whisper of something that might not be real. My name is Dr. Louis Hartman. I'm 58, a night physician at Breerfield General, Internal Medicine. I've been on nights for the last 7 years, by choice. Mostly, my wife passed, and the days were too bright. After that, nights were quieter. You don't have to smile at anyone when it's dark. I used to do last rounds around 4:30 every morning. Just me, a worn-out clipboard, and the slow shuffle past the oncology wing, the heart unit, and the palliative care ward. I said it was to check vitals, make sure the new interns didn't miss anything, but truthfully, it was to be near the ones still hanging on. Something about being close to the edge made me feel less hollow. It was 2 winters ago when I started noticing things in the West Wing. That part of the hospital had been half emptied during renovations. Most of the rooms were sealed off, stripped down to wires and dust, but room 5C was always occupied, at least on paper. 5C wasn't on any active rotation, but every time I passed it, the light was on. Not the ceiling fixture, the bedside lamp, a low amber glow, like someone wanted to read before sleep. The name on the chart was Rachel Thomason, 83 years old, terminal cardiac fibrosis, admitted 7 years ago, but there was no record of discharge, no DNR, no date of death, just an open file, frozen in place. The first time I opened the door, I just wanted to see if someone forgot to sign out the room. The air hit me like a wall, cold, dry, tinged with that faint vinegar smell old linens get when left too long. The room was spotless, no signs of recent care, yet the bed was neatly made, IV poles standing beside it, and the lamp glowed softly from the bedside table. And there she was, sitting in the chair by the window, frail, slight, wearing a pale blue gown. Her white hair was neatly pinned, hands folded in her lap. She didn't move when I entered. I cleared my throat and stepped in. "Miss Thomason." She looked at me then, not startled, just curious. Her eyes were pale green, rimmed with age. "You're late," she said quietly. I stared. "Excuse me. Rounds. They're usually at 4:15. You're late tonight." There was no chart, no vitals board, no medication list, just that single presence, her sitting so still. I could have mistaken her for a doll. I nodded out of habit. "Apologies. I'll be quick." She gave a little smile, like she was indulging me. I checked her pulse. It was cold, not just her skin, her rhythm. It was there, but distant, muted, like a fading song. Her chest rose and fell so slowly. I thought I imagined it. "Do you need anything?" I asked. "No," she said. "I've been waiting." "For what?" She looked out the window then, though there was nothing to see but the fogged-up reflection of the room. "For you." That should have been it. A strange moment with an elderly woman in a forgotten room. But the next night, the lamp was on again, and the night after that. Every time I passed 5C, I felt drawn to it, not like curiosity, like gravity. And each night, she was there, always in the chair, always waiting. We spoke more over time. She asked me about my late wife, by name, about my son, who'd moved to Oregon, things no chart could hold. "You lost someone here, didn't you?" she asked one night. I blinked. "Yes, more than one." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She said she remembered things, not because she was told, but because the walls whispered when the lights went low. "This hospital remembers its pain," she said. "It just doesn't speak until the quiet comes." I started losing time. One night, I found myself sitting in the chair opposite her, not remembering when I sat down. Another, I realized I hadn't done rounds at all. Just walked straight to 5C, like pulled by a string. The room never changed, never aged. Not the sheets, not the smell, not the low golden light. I finally asked, "Why are you still here?" She tilted her head. "Because someone has to stay behind and remember." "Remember what?" She didn't answer. Then one night, I found the room dark. No lamp, no patient, just an empty bed. Stripped down, tags hanging loose. Relieved, I stepped inside. It felt lighter, hollow but normal. I turned to leave, and found her standing in the doorway behind me. Not angry, not ghostly, just solemn. "You forgot me already," she said. "I thought you were gone." She shook her head slowly. "Not gone, just quiet, like everything else here." And then she stepped forward, placed her fingers on my wrist and said, "It's your turn now." Something shifted in the air, in me. I stumbled back, left the room, walked the hallways for nearly an hour. When I returned, room 5C was gone. Not empty, gone. A wall stood where the door had been, seamless, like it had never been there. The chart, deleted. No Rachel Thomason in the system. No file, not even in the paper backups. It was like the room had folded into the building, swallowed whole. I don't do rounds anymore. I sit in the main nurse's station and wait for dawn. And sometimes, when the lights flicker at exactly 4:15, I feel the air pull, like a door has opened somewhere just beyond the wall. I think I know what she meant now, about remembering. Not everyone dies in the hospital. Some remain, because no one else will remember them. They live on in corners and shadows, in routine footsteps, in locked doors and broken elevators. I dream of 5C now, and in the dream, I'm always late, and she's always waiting.